But he wouldn't. He was very, he became reticent about the whole situation. And Bob was calling him, and we said, come on, Al's going to be in it, and Bob and you. And he said, yeah, but it's again a gangster thing. We've done it before. So no, this is going to be different. But he wouldn't listen, really.
Few directors in cinema inspire as much awe as Martin Scorsese. His fingerprints are on some of the most influential films ever made: Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Goodfellas, The Departed, The Irishman. His movies don't just tell stories, they shape the very language of American filmmaking. But behind the acclaim lies a reputation just as fierce as his films. Scorsese is known for his uncompromising standards, a relentless attention to detail, and a fiery temperament when those around him fail to match his intensity. He is a man who sees cinema as sacred, and when someone steps out of tune with his vision, sparks can fly. While he built lifelong partnerships with legends like Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio, not every actor was so fortunate. Some clashed. With him, some were dismissed, and some walked away entirely. And in a few cases, those disagreements cost them more than they could have imagined. Today, we're diving into 6 stories. 6 actors whose collaborations with Martin Scorsese went so wrong that they've entered Hollywood lore. These aren't just tales of personal feuds. They're windows into the perfectionist mind of a master filmmaker. The year was 2006. Martin Scorsese was gearing up for The Departed, the Boston-set crime thriller that would finally win him his long-overdue Academy Award for Best Director. The cast was stacked: Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson. But one name stood out: Mark Wahlberg. Here's the twist: Wahlberg didn't even want the part. In interviews years later, he admitted, "Marty called me and was so excited, and I told him, I'm not doing the movie." He didn't like the script, didn't think the role was right for him, and signed on reluctantly, balancing it alongside another film, Invincible. From the first day on set, the chemistry was volatile. Wahlberg wanted to unleash his raw Boston personality through improvisation. Scorsese wanted restraint, subtlety, and control. Crew members recalled scenes dragging on endlessly as Scorsese whispered, "Less, less, less," while Wahlberg pushed for more volume, more speed, more bite. The tension boiled over into personal territory. Wahlberg refused to cut his shaggy haircut, necessary for Invincible, and when Scorsese pushed him, Wahlberg shot back with the blunt, "I don't give a foo." Not exactly the kind of collaboration Scorsese cherished. Yet here's the paradox: the clash worked. Wahlberg's turn as Sergeant Dignam earned him his first and only Oscar nomination. It was the role Scorsese had the hardest time controlling, but it was also the performance that won the most recognition. Still, the wounds didn't heal. Wahlberg was nowhere near the director's next projects. When asked about it later, Scorsese cryptically told film students, "Sometimes an actor gives you what audiences want instead of what the character needs." Insiders believed the jab was aimed squarely at Wahlberg. The two never worked together again. What remained was a curious paradox: a collaboration so hostile it created brilliance, but destroyed any chance of repeating it. Flashback to the 1970s. James Caan was Hollywood's tough guy of the moment, riding high from his electrifying turn as Sonny Corleone in The Godfather. Around the same time, Martin Scorsese was developing a raw character piece tentatively called Italian-American. The idea of pairing Scorsese's gritty realism with Caan's combustible presence seemed destined for greatness. But from the first rehearsal, it was a disaster. Caan was an instinctive actor. He thrived on improvisation, tossing out lines and rewriting dialogue on the spot. Scorsese, however, believed in precision. Every word, every pause mattered. When Caan threw out scripted lines, Scorsese saw it as an attack on his vision. Witnesses recalled explosive arguments. Scorsese's voice would rise, Caan would push back, and the room would erupt into chaos. What began as artistic experimentation turned into a tug-of-war for control. For Scorsese, film was a director's medium. For Caan, It was an actor's playground. Those philosophies collided head-on, and within weeks, the project collapsed. Publicly, it was chalked up to creative differences. Privately, Scorsese admitted he found Con impossible. The fallout was permanent. They never attempted another collaboration, not even decades later. Instead, the clash entered Hollywood legend as one of cinema's biggest what-ifs. What if James Caan had starred in a Scorsese film? What would that marriage of fire and fire have looked like on screen? We'll never know. By the early 1990s, Julia Roberts was Hollywood royalty. Fresh off Pretty Woman, she was the face of America's sweetheart era, radiant, likable, magnetic. So when her name surfaced for The Age of Innocence, 1993, a Martin Scorsese period drama, it seemed like a dream match. At first glance, Roberts' charm might have been perfect for the role of Countess Ellen Olenska, a woman torn between duty and passion. But Scorsese saw trouble from the start. Roberts carried a modern sensibility, a presence that felt distinctly of the 90s rather than the 1870s. Their clashes came to a head during costume fittings. Scorsese demanded she rehearse in restrictive corsets to physically feel the suffocation of high society. Roberts balked, questioning why such discomfort was necessary before the cameras rolled. To her, it felt artificial. To him, it was essential. To authenticity. Roberts later alluded to the experience in an interview, describing a director who wanted her to literally not breathe properly for the sake of character. Scorsese, meanwhile, explained in his own way, "In period films, I need actors who disappear into another time, not actors who bring our time into theirs." The divide proved insurmountable. Roberts stepped away, and Michelle Pfeiffer ultimately took the role. The film earned critical acclaim, but the near collaboration with Roberts remains a Hollywood curiosity. Neither has spoken ill of the other. Their silence, however, says enough. Scorsese and Roberts never attempted to work together again. Not long after Roberts departed The Age of Innocence, another rising star entered Scorsese's orbit, Winona Ryder. She was cast as Mae Welland, the picture of innocence and propriety. But beneath the surface, Scorsese wanted Mae to be calculating, quietly manipulative, even ruthless in her control over Newland Archer's fate. Ryder, however, saw Mae differently. She leaned toward vulnerability, portraying her as a fragile woman trapped by circumstance. The tension escalated into some of the most grueling days of Ryder's career. On one infamous day, Scorsese halted filming for nearly 6 hours, demanding Ryder adjust her performance by microscopic degrees. Crew members recalled him whispering directions for half an hour at a time, then sending Ryder back to the camera only to pull her aside again. The cycle repeated until she was in tears. The breaking point came with Mae's pregnancy revelation, pivotal scene. Scorsese insisted it be played not with sorrow, but with quiet triumph, a subtle act of victory. Ryder delivered. The performance earned her an Academy Award nomination, but the cost was clear. Ryder appeared emotionally drained during press interviews and notably absent from the film's commentary tracks and promotional pushes. Years later, she obliquely referenced directors who confuse suffering with depth, a line many interpreted as aimed at Scorsese. For Scorsese, the collaboration was equally scarring. Asked years later if he would work with Ryder again, he replied curtly, "Winona is brilliant at certain qualities. Mae required something else." The film succeeded, but their working relationship was finished. By the late 1990s, Jim Carrey had transformed from slapstick comedian into a dramatic powerhouse with films like The Truman Show and Man on the Moon. Around that time, Martin Scorsese was developing a long gestating project on the life of Howard Hughes, which would eventually become The Aviator. Initially, Carrey was considered for the lead role. Scorsese believed his manic energy could capture Hughes's eccentric brilliance, but there was a catch. Carrey's style was rooted in improvisation, in building characters through chaos and spontaneity. Scorsese's process, by contrast, demanded exact precision. During a workshop session, Cary brought bold ideas, physical transformations, and endless improvisations. At first, Scorsese was intrigued, but the more Cary pushed, the more uncomfortable he became. Dialogue mattered to Scorsese, every pause, every beat, and Cary's freeform approach felt like disorder. As production designer Dante Ferretti later described, the room grew colder by the minute. Scorsese finally admitted to colleagues, "Jim's brilliance is undeniable, but it's not compatible with my process." The project stalled. Cary moved on to other films, and Scorsese reimagined The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio, whose disciplined precision aligned with his method. Cary later reflected on the lost opportunity with grace. Sometimes the greatest gift is the door that stays closed. It wasn't a feud, but a recognition that two artists' styles simply couldn't coexist. Before Martin Scorsese became a legend, he was a hungry filmmaker with a vision. And before Robert De Niro became Travis Bickle, the role was almost given to Dustin Hoffman. Fresh off The Graduate and Midnight Cowboy, Hoffman was one of the hottest stars of the early 1970s. Scorsese sought him out for a new project, Taxi Driver. But when the two met, things went south immediately. Hoffman recalled the encounter years later. "He had no script, and I didn't know who he was. He just talked a mile a minute about this movie. I thought the guy was crazy." Hoffman walked away, uninterested in what seemed like a chaotic gamble. Scorsese turned instead to Robert De Niro, whose portrayal of Travis Bickle became one of the most iconic performances in cinema history. Hoffman later admitted regret. "I made so many dumb mistakes turning down movies. Taxi Driver was one of them." But the damage was done. Scorsese never offered him another chance. For Scorsese, the rejection only confirmed his instincts. Hoffman craved boundaries while he demanded actors plunge into chaos. As he later put it, "Some actors need protection. I need actors who can be destroyed and still keep going."